When I was a kid, I used to watch Goosebumps. Yeah, I don't know if you watched Goosebumps or not, but it wasn't a very good show, really. But it was amazing. It was fantastic. I loved it. But I was watching the reruns on Cartoon Network. Don't know where Goosebumps originally started, what network it was on. But I watched it on Cartoon Network. I know. Wasn't really a cartoon. I don't know why it was on Cartoon Network if it wasn't a cartoon. But I loved it. I watched probably every episode that aired. And I always wondered what happened to it. Do people still remember it? I kind of do remember what happened to it. That's that Jack Black movie that I've never watched, and I don't think anybody ever watched. The lawsuits that killed Goosebumps from Channel Surfer.
You will beware. You're in for a scare. Goosebumps.
That bring back memories, man. That bring back so many memories.
For those who grew up in the 1990s, the Goosebumps franchise was unavoidable. Originally released as a horror book series for children, Goosebumps quickly grew beyond the world of literature, spawning a television series, games, toys, and loads of merchandise. By the mid-90s, the Goosebumps
I have one of the books somewhere laying around. Like, I just saw it just probably 20 minutes ago.
brand was everywhere, raking in millions of dollars for its publisher Scholastic and its author R.L. Stine. But as the franchise exploded in popularity, a legal battle would manifest between Stine and Scholastic, which would ultimately lead to the franchise.
I've heard so many terrible things with Scholastic, like so many book brands being destroyed because of Scholastic, because Scholastic, of course, it's like a government operation kinda, they're in the schools.
Franchise's downfall. R.L. Stine began his publishing career in the 1970s, serving as the editor for the teen humor magazine Bananas, which was published by Scholastic Press. In 1984, the
I didn't know that. Yeah, I even knew I know what that publication is.
magazine folded, and Stine was encouraged by his editors to dabble in young adult horror, a literary genre sweeping the book world. By the mid-1980s, authors like Christopher Pike and Lois Duncan had grown to prominence, writing paperback thriller novels aimed at teenagers. Stine took a crack at it, publishing Blind Date in 1986, followed by a string of standalone teen thrillers.
Hey, I read that Twisted one. I used to read a lot of these books. I read a lot of books still, by the way. I am a book reading man. I haven't started a new book. I finished the third book in the Foundation series. There we go. For some reason I was blanking on the name. It's been a while. It's been a couple months.
As his work gained in popularity, Stine and his wife Jane set up a publishing company called Parachute Press. The company worked out a deal with Simon & Schuster to publish their new teen horror series Fear Street, with the first installment, The New Girl, being published in 1989.
Never heard of that. I need to get these books. I need to get a lot of these books, I think. I need to go on to the eBay and purchase a lot of these books, probably in bulk, and just read through them all, man. Maybe I'll make a series about it. Who knows?
The series was presented in an anthology style, with each installment following different characters within the fictional town of Shadyside. The series depicted
That's
dark
cool.
themes like murder, hauntings, and psychic phenomena. And by the early 1990s, Fear Street had soared in popularity to become one of the best-selling book series for young adults, with Stine releasing a new book every single month. Around this time, Stine was encouraged by his wife Jane to create a new horror series, this time aimed at children rather than teens. The result was Goosebumps, with Stine lifting the name from an ad he saw in TV Guide. Like Fear Street, the Goosebumps books would be anthological in nature, with each installment featuring a child protagonist facing sinister supernatural forces. Goosebumps is
Dude, I get so much nostalgia from the Goosebumps covers, because I've probably seen every single one of them. I might have had every single Goosebumps book at one time. because we bought a bunch at like yard sales and garage sales and things and flea markets. I bet I could, if I look, I bet I could find more at those same places today.
Target demographic was children ages 8 through 12, and in 1991, Parachute Press signed a deal with the Scholastic Corporation, allowing them to publish the first 6 Goosebumps books. While Parachute would own the series trademark, the Scholastic Corporation, allowing them to publish the first...
I think I read all of these, because I remember all of them.
6 Goosebumps books. While Parachute would own the series trademark, the agreement gave Scholastic control over the book's non-publication rights, which would include adaptations, merchandise, and other licensing deals. Additionally, Parachute agreed to a stipulation that said that R.L. Stine would be the sole writer of each installment in the series. The first 2 books, Welcome to Dead House and Stay Out of the Basement, were published by Scholastic in July of 1992.
Oh man, I really want to read them. Because they're just like... in the back of my mind, I remember these. I don't know what happened. I just know that I read them.
More installments quickly followed, but with limited promotion, the series was not a huge hit right off the bat. However, Goosebumps would benefit heavily from being included in Scholastic book fairs.
Oh, the book fairs. Oh, the book fairs. I mostly didn't buy actual like books to read when I was a kid. When I would, it'd be like nonfiction stuff. I used to get the Guinness Book of World Records, Ripley's Believe It or Not. I used to get from these book fairs. I have 2 game code books over there on my shelf that I got from book fairs. It has PS2 games. Really, the only thing I used them for was like the Grand Theft Auto games because they had the actual cheat codes in there for the Grand Theft Auto games, and online it was hit or miss whether you'd actually get real cheat codes.
Elementary schools across the country. Scholastic had begun doing book fairs in 1981, in which the company would deliver books to school libraries and display them for a full week, allowing students to browse and purchase them. The event was designed to raise money for schools and promote literacy amongst grade school children, also serving as a valuable outlet for Scholastic to...
And boy, when you couldn't go buy stuff at the book fair, you felt bad. You felt like your parents failed you. You felt uncool compared to the other kids that were going in there and buying stuff. And then they would give it to you in class, and all the other kids would just have to sit there sad because they didn't get anything. It was rough. It was a rough one, man.
Promote its books directly to kids. Within a year of its publication, Goosebumps had become a big hit at book fairs, with 1.8 million copies of the series in print by 1993. And though R.L. Stine was already a recognizable name with teen readers thanks to Fear Street, Goosebumps helped him reach a younger demographic, delivering his signature spooky tales to...
I have a sudden urge to just buy all of the books that I used to love as a kid, like the Cirque du Freak series. I used to love that series, and the movie completely... I just don't even count it as being a adaptation of the books.
To an elementary school crowd. Many applauded Stine for creating content that got children reading. Others expressed concern that the horror themes present in these books were too scary for young readers. But regardless of what parents and critics thought, one thing was for certain. Children of the 90s loved to be scared, and Goosebumps was delivering the goods. Scholastic and Parachute Press quickly renewed their contract, agreeing to publish more Goosebumps books written solely by Stine. And
Is there anything right now that's good, that's scary for kids? Because, I mean, for a while it was Five Nights at Freddy's and stuff like that. Is there anything out right now? Because I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old, I'm getting lost to the times. But there's not really a phenomena going on right now.
Through word of mouth.
Because if it was something as big as Five Nights at Freddy's, then I would know about it. We'd be hearing about it all over the place.
Goosebumps' popularity grew immensely, with the books in the series consistently hitting the bestseller list. In addition to the original series, the first spin-off book was released in October of 1994, a short story collection entitled Tales to Give You Goosebumps. and the series overall was now outpacing sales of Fear Street. While Goosebumps had grown steadily in its first few years of publication, 1995 was the year that the series exploded in popularity. An interactive spin-off book series entitled Give Yourself Goosebumps was introduced, and between the original book series and its spin-offs, Scholastic was reportedly shipping out 4 million copies.
I remember Night of the Living Dummy. I don't know these special edition ones though, these tales. I think maybe I read one of them.
Copies of Goosebumps books every single month, as the series now had over 70 million copies in circulation. Fall of 1995 would see the premiere of the Goosebumps television series, produced by Scholastic Productions. The pilot episode, an adaptation of the 11th Goosebumps book, The Haunted Mask, premiered in a primetime slot on the Fox network, before moving to its regular time slot on Friday afternoons during the Fox Kids block. The series received high ratings and positive viewer feedback.
Oh, of course it was on Fox. You know what? I do remember it being on Fox. But I was really, really young when I was watching stuff on Fox. This was before we had like Cartoon Network on our local cable package. We only had our only cartoon networks were Fox, and like they'd have Fox Kids in the mornings and on Saturdays and stuff. And I think we had Nickelodeon, but Nickelodeon I didn't really like because it was stuff at the time. The best thing that was on was Cat Dog. Wasn't really a fan of Cat Dog when I was a really, really young kid. When I was like 10 years old, I did become a fan of Cat Dog. But that was when there was Invader Zim and stuff like that on Nickelodeon.
Prompting the creation of yet another spin-off book series based on the TV episodes entitled Goosebumps Presents. In 1996, Scholastic began releasing episodes of the TV series on VHS, and the franchise was now expanding beyond books and TV, with various products being released bearing the Goosebumps logo. In July of 1996, Scholastic announced a $40 million deal with the Pepsi Company to promote Goosebumps through various Pepsi-owned products. Miniature Goosebumps books would be included in 30 million bags of chips, and millions of dollars worth of ads on TV would draw attention to the promotion. Goosebumps merchandise was being pumped out left and right, and brand exposure was higher than ever. The series had begun as an organic word-of-mouth literary phenomena and had quickly turned into a mainstream multimedia brand. And Scholastic as a company had benefited immensely from the franchise, reaching $1 billion in sales and—
Man, Goosebumps and Power Rangers before school every morning. Always. Loved it.
being dubbed the Disney of children's book publishing. But Parachute Press was growing increasingly frustrated by their agreement with Scholastic. In early 1996, Jane Stine, along with Parachute Press executive Joan Warrica, attended a meeting with Dick Robinson, the head of Scholastic, in which they asked the publisher to give Parachute control of Goosebumps licensing, along with a $10 million signing bonus.
Wait, I was wrong. No, hold on. It would be Power Rangers before school. I'd get home from school, and then Goosebumps would come on. Because when I'd get home, oh man, I'm getting all these feelings and memories of nostalgia of like coming home and immediately watching Goosebumps. And it felt so good, like that afternoon glow. And then Goosebumps would be on. 10 years old.
Scholastic refused. The Goosebumps brand, including all of its licensing deals, was now responsible for half of the company's profits. Relations between Parachute and Scholastic quickly deteriorated, with one former Scholastic employee telling the press, "World War III began that day, and it killed the brand." Despite their differences, the two sides signed a new deal in November of 1996, which gave Parachute control over the negotiation of licensing deals with—
All of this happened before my time. I was one in 1996. When I'm speaking of things, I'm talking 10 years old. I was like, it was like 2005, 2006. Maybe even a little later than that. I might not have been 10. I might have been 12 or something.
Scholastic having the right to approve or deny the deals. The new agreement would allow Scholastic to publish 106 new books from Parachute and would increase the royalty rate that Parachute was to be paid from Scholastic. But the new contract also contained an important provision. That if any of its terms were breached, the agreement would be void and the two parties would revert back to their previous agreements. With the Goosebumps TV series entering its second season, over 40 Goosebumps licensing deals had been secured, and the franchise was hitting a new peak. But by 1997, the empire would begin to falter as internal and external pressures threatened to tear it apart. In February of 1997, Scholastic announced to investors that sales of Goosebumps books were unexpectedly declining, which would result in the company's stock values dropping. The drop in sales was attributed to older Goosebumps books not selling as well as they had in the past. With over 180 million Goosebumps books in print, it appeared that the book series had finally reached the ceiling of its success. The news hit investors hard, with
I think that they printed too many books too fast, and like kids weren't as they don't stick to the same thing. That kids move on, they follow trends. And trends follow trends, and kids set trends that make them want to follow other trends. So like you can't stick to the same thing for too long. You have to have like a set start and a set ending, and then move on to something else. Because I remember everybody was into Goosebumps, and then everybody started getting into like Magic Treehouse and stuff. And then everybody moved on to like Harry Potter, and it's just like you're into whatever your friends are into, and it causes this like chain reaction, and it could even be caused by one or two of the kids thinking something's cool, and then some other kid sees it, thinks it's cool, and it just catches on from there. It's really how it was a lot of times.
Scholastic stock dropping 41%. The company's stockholders subsequently filed a lawsuit against Scholastic, charging that it knew about Goosebumps' declining sales months earlier but had deliberately concealed the information. While book sales had dipped, the Goosebumps franchise remained strong overall in 1997, as a Disney World theme park attraction opened and the TV series was moved to Saturday mornings, becoming a top-rated show on the Fox Kids block. But by mid-1997, relations between Scholastic and Parachute had completely soured. The two entities reportedly came to a stalemate over licensing deals, with 16 different deals falling through because of their internal disagreements. In summer of 1997, Scholastic accused Parachute of using unapproved forms to make licensing deals. Scholastic saw this as a violation of their contract, which they said gave them the right to void the current contract and revert back to previous terms. This would mean that Parachute's higher royalty rate, which was negotiated in the newest contract, was also void, with Scholastic halting its royalty payments to Parachute. In response, Parachute Press filed a lawsuit against Scholastic, charging that Scholastic had breached their contract and owed them $36 million in royalties. Scholastic countersued, alleging that Parachute had breached the contract first by hiring ghostwriters to write the Goosebumps books. According to the contract made between Scholastic and Parachute, Stine was to be the sole writer.
It's like straight up two kids fighting each other and neither one of them's right.
Of the original
How
Goosebumps
ironic.
books, though the agreement did permit him to use ghostwriters for books in the spin-off series. According to Scholastic, R.L. Stine did write the first 16 books himself. However, starting with book number 17, Why I'm Afraid of Bees, Scholastic claimed that Parachute began hiring ghostwriters, who would be given a 10-page outline from Stine and turn it into a full manuscript of around 120 pages. These ghostwriters allegedly made a majority of the creative decisions, while Stine would review the manuscripts and make minimal revisions before publication. Scholastic claims that Stine was working.
You know, honestly, if it works, it works. And they got mad about it.
More as an editor rather than a writer, thus breaking the terms of their contract. Scholastic even claimed that the declining sales of the Goosebumps books were a direct result of Stine employing ghostwriters, as they
Most likely. It probably was.
were not able to adequately recreate.
Because, like, yeah, that's obviously a decline in the quality and the ideas. Because the original ones, they were iconic. What is this? What are these even? What are those?
Stine's unique voice. R.L. Stine was releasing 24 books per year, and while some questioned how this was possible, he had always publicly denied using ghostwriters, joking to the press in 1993 that
Well, I mean, how hard can it be to actually write kids' books once they're popular? All you got, the hard part is getting them popular.
he's much too greedy to hire assistants. But over the course of the lawsuit, Parachute did admit to hiring writer's assistants for Stine, starting with book 17 in the Goosebumps series, in order to meet deadlines and allow Stine more time to make promotional appearances. But Parachute said that the contributions from these assistants were minimal, and that Stine was still making a majority of creative decisions, including coming up with book titles, plots, and characters. Parachute claimed that Stine still had full creative control and was not breaching his contract by using assistants, which they said was common industry practice.
So it was taking him approximately like 2 weeks to write a book, right? He's writing 24 books a year. So that'd be two books a month that he'd be writing. That'd be one book every 2 weeks. That's crazy. And they're like not really all that small of books.
With Goosebumps in legal limbo, and both sides retaining some ownership of the brand, it was unknown how things would continue. In October of 1997, Scholastic went ahead and published the latest Goosebumps book, a spin-off entitled Goosebumps Triple Header. The book would include 3 original short stories, being presented by a triple-headed monster named Lefty, Righty, and Slim. Shortly thereafter, Parachute filed another lawsuit against Scholastic in federal court, claiming that the publisher had breached their 1996 agreement and was engaging in copyright infringement with its release of the triple header book. Despite these lawsuits, the two parties were still under contract for dozens of new Goosebumps books. In late 1997, Scholastic stated that it would continue to publish the Goosebumps series as planned, and Parachute agreed to deliver new manuscripts for publication until the courts made their decision. Other spin-off projects remained in development, including a Goosebumps feature film produced by Tim Burton. At the time,
That would have been amazing. They should have done that. That would have made so much money.
Jane Stine was quoted as saying, "It is quite unpleasant, but we still work with them every day." The two companies were still benefiting heavily from the Goosebumps franchise, and both had a vested interest in keeping the ball rolling. A brand new series entitled Goosebumps Series 2000 was launched in January of 1998, with one new book being published each month. While sales had dipped from its peak, the books were still selling well, with the new series.
I remember those. I remember that my childhood best friend was getting the ones that said Series 2000, or at least had the one with the Wolfman on it.
Quickly becoming one of the best-selling book series in children's literature. The
Or was it a
Goosebumps
cat?
TV series
It was a
also
cat.
continued to do well, with the show expanding to air 6 days a week on the Fox Kids block. But by 1998, the block overall was succumbing to increased competition, with its viewership decreasing by 30%. The Goosebumps series was renewed for an abbreviated 4th season of just 8 episodes, which aired in fall of 1998. After quietly wrapping up its run on Saturday mornings, Fox began airing reruns on its new cable network Fox Family in the fall of 1999. But Scholastic was not happy with this move, which they said violated their contract. Scholastic claimed that it was entitled to the profit.
Dude, I have so much nostalgia for like 1999 cable TV. So it's so good looking back. The commercials were even good. I'll even like watch compilations of commercials that used to come on, especially the ones that would come on these family channels and these kids channels. They had some really crazy, interesting commercials going on back then.
Fox made from distributing the series to other TV outlets, while Fox maintained that Fox Family was a part of their network, thus not subject to any further fees. So yet another lawsuit was initiated, with Scholastic suing Fox for copyright infringement and seeking $2.7 million in damages. The TV series continued to air in reruns on Fox Family until 2001, and reportedly sold very well on home video. It's unknown if the producers of the series had any plans to continue.
I really want to go back to the 90s. I want to be like my age right now in the 90s. I just want to go back there and just experience what people my age experienced in the 90s.
with a fifth season. But with such a high-profile lawsuit between its owners, new episodes of the series were out of the question, and the show was effectively canceled. Meanwhile, back in the publishing world, R.L. Stine continued to work on the Goosebumps books, wrapping up his contract with Scholastic as a new young adult series was taking the nation by storm. In 1997, Scholastic spent $100,000 to purchase the U.S. rights to a young adult novel entitled Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Thanks to positive word of mouth, the fantasy novel became a huge hit in England, and the following year, Scholastic released J.K. Rowling's debut novel in America under the title Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Matching its overseas success, the book became a bestseller in the U.S., topping the New York
So, we had the trends that happened everywhere else in my town, but like 5 years later. I guess it got to us late because we were poor and we didn't have internet or connections, and my town is like in the middle of nowhere.
Times bestseller list in 1999.
Like the school was poor.
Harry Potter sequels were published by Scholastic that same year, and though the Goosebumps franchise was still tied up in court, the publisher had found a new cash cow to milk. R.L. Stine and Parachute Press continued delivering Goosebumps 2000 and Give Yourself Goosebumps books, but the writing was on the wall for the series. Sales had declined to just 200,000 copies per month, as the series had been overshadowed heavily by Harry Potter along with another Scholastic young adult series.
Animorphs was a lot. Animorphs was kind of... I don't think teachers knew what Animorphs was. Because when you go home and look up Animorphs after seeing what Animorphs was about in this, like, it's kind of brutal. It's kind of a brutal thing for kids to be engaging in and be into in book form.
Animorphs. To put it simply, in the ever-evolving world of children's entertainment, Goosebumps was old news. Moving on from Scholastic, R.L. Stine and Parachute signed a new deal with HarperCollins, which would release Stine's new young adult horror series, The Nightmare Room, along with a brand new 12-book Goosebumps series entitled Goosebumps Gold. HarperCollins initially planned to release both series in the year 2000, with the first Nightmare Room installment being released in August. But in late 2000, the release of Goosebumps Gold was postponed without explanation. Artist Tim Jacobus, who had created the cover art for most of the Goosebumps books, posted a page on his website promoting the Goosebumps Gold series for release in 2001. The website even gave a preview of the first two installments, but the series was canceled before its release, likely due to the ongoing litigation.
I remember The Haunted Mask Lives.
Between Scholastic and Parachute about the rights to the series. After the final Goosebumps books were published in the year 2000, the series would lay dormant for several years. Scholastic's revenue continued to grow significantly with the Harry Potter series, now a global phenomena that had far surpassed Goosebumps' success. It wasn't until 2003 that the complex web of lawsuits plaguing the Goosebumps franchise finally came to a conclusion. First, in January of 2003, Parachute Press and Scholastic came to a settlement, with Scholastic agreeing to pay Parachute $9.65 million for the rights to Goosebumps and its trademark.
If this gives you any time frame of like what it was like, I was in 5th grade when Twilight got super popular. And that was, I think, the first time that something was trendy that my town actually had grasp of. When Twilight was popular everywhere, it was popular in my town too. That was the first time. And from then on out, I think all the trends followed the same.
And in June of that year, Scholastic lost its case against Fox regarding the airing of Goosebumps on the Fox Family Channel. The irony is that by the time these lawsuits were settled, much of the public interest in the Goosebumps franchise had died out. As the book series ended in the year 2000 and the TV series stopped airing in 2001, Goosebumps had lost much of the potency that had made it so popular back in the 1990s. However, copies of Goosebumps books still existed in schools and libraries across the world, and
Oh yeah, they did. And that's probably how I got most of my accelerated reader points. Anybody else use that in schools? Accelerated reader, where you get the the point system, and you get awards at the end of the quarter, the end of the 9 weeks, or however long it was for you. It was different for some people.
Generations of young readers would continue to discover the series for the first time. In November of 2003, Scholastic began re-releasing books from the original series with slightly modified covers. Goosebumps continued to sell around 2 million copies per year, and the franchise overall received a boost when reruns of the TV series began airing on Cartoon Network in 2007. In 2008, Goosebumps was resurrected as Goosebumps Horrorland, a new book series with R.L. Stine at the helm. The series ran until 2012 and was followed by 3 more series, including Goosebumps House
Hey.
of Shivers, which is
I remember Slappy World. I don't know House of Shivers and Most Wanted, but I do know Slappy World.
still being published today. And the long-awaited feature film adaptation of Goosebumps finally came to fruition in 2015, with Jack Black portraying a fictionalized version of Stine.
I didn't watch it. Was it any good? I doubt it. But you know, the original show wasn't good, and I fucking love that show.
To this day, R.L. Stine maintains that he wrote all of the Goosebumps books himself, saying that he only used outside writers to help with the outlines. And while we may never know the extent to which ghostwriters were employed, it's clear that Stine was always the driving force behind the franchise, creating an iconic world that continues to captivate readers to this day. Over 30 years after its initial inception, Goosebumps is still going strong, pumping out books, films, and TV series. But there's no doubt that Goosebumps' peak as a cultural phenomena was in the 1990s. Before all the hype that transformed the series into a global franchise, Goosebumps was simply a book on the shelf, able to enthrall young readers through catchy titles, imaginative cover art, and engaging plots. While Goosebumps was never high-level literature, it got kids reading, creating a new generation of book lovers and leaving a
And there was just a vibe of that kind of stuff going on around then too, man. That was like, kids were into Destroy All Humans, and they were reading Goosebumps and like listening to Linkin Park.
lasting impression on its audience. While the lawsuit certainly slowed the franchise down, Goosebumps has embedded itself into the fabric of American culture and will not soon be forgotten. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. And if you'd like to support me
I
on
am gonna hit that
Patreon,
like
you
and
can find
subscribe.
the link in the description.
That was a good video. That I felt things. I felt childhood in this video. I'm probably gonna watch more videos like this of stuff that I used to like. Especially I want to get into Power Rangers and stuff, because Power Rangers, for anybody that's older than me, Power Rangers was my Transformers. I watched every Power Rangers series. I watched every episode. I watched it every morning before I went to school for a while. Years. I thought I was a Power Ranger. And I really, really, really liked the Titanium Ranger. And Goosebumps, I loved Goosebumps too, man. I treated it the same, it just didn't last as long. And I was a little bit older. But I read all the books that I came across. And I had a bunch of them. I still have a few. I need to get more of them.